So one day I asked him, he said, something he was saying about temple. We were talking about temple. And I said, why is there a need to go to temple? He said, first he said, God is within. I said, okay, then why do you go to temple? His answer was spontaneous, no thinking. He just said, you need a plate to put the food. You don't put food on the floor. Put the food on the plate to eat. But the food is more important, not the plate. But you also need the plate.
Wow.
You
Wow.
a Parkinson's patient where doctors say they have no cognition, they are dumb and all those, I can tell you this man was the most wise, intelligent man in the last phase of his life. I would never consider him as what all the doctors put the label on. No, I learned so much from him. See how profound that is. And it came out spontaneously.
Join us in the realm of holistic human, where we explore the essential elements that empower us to flourish, revealing our hidden potential and nurturing our growth.
Good morning. Welcome to the Holistic Human Podcast. Today, I am very fortunate to have Madam Vasanthi with us today. Hello.
Hi.
Vasanthi is the president of the Ayurveda Association of Singapore. She actively conducts a lot of educational programs and outreach programs, educating and also bringing the awareness of Ayurveda to the public. Vasanthi graduated from National University of Singapore with a Bachelor of Arts. Subsequently, she obtained a yoga teacher's certificate from the S. Vyasa Yoga University in 1995 and also completed a Hatha Yoga course with the Nikam Guruji Yoga. At this part, she completed a Hatha Yoga course following the Nikam Guruji Yoga syllabus in Singapore in 2009. And she became the director of Energy Ayurveda and Yoga Private Limited in 2013. In terms of Ayurveda, she completed a course in Ayurveda pharmacology back in 2007, and she's the founder and president of the Ayurveda Association of Singapore, established in 2009. She subsequently completed her Ayurveda Nutrition and Beauty Care Certificate under the Institute of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, Bangalore, in 2011. Currently, she is the Certified Ayurvedic Wellness Counselor under the Kerala Ayurveda Academy of the USA since 2020. She was also the external trainer for the Complementary Medicine Guide for Pharmacy Professionals in Singapore, Ngee Ann Polytechnic. Currently, under the topic of Ayurveda, Vasanthi is undergoing PhD under Prof. G. Gangadharan. Just like to share a bit about how I met Vasanthi. I met her at the Alternative and Complementary Medicine Conference in Kuala Lumpur back in 2015 and 2016 actually. And it's also where I met Dr. Teo Ren Shang, who is a doctor who currently has a certificate in acupuncture and is someone who will be hopping on to the Holistic Human podcast end of the month. And also, I got reconnected with Vasanthi through Michael, who is my tutor in the London Clinical College of Hypnosis, Singapore chapter. So happy to get reconnected with Vasanthi. And once again, good morning and thank you for being here. I would like to invite you to share with us your journey in Ayurveda as well as yoga, Vasanthi.
Sure. Good morning, Kuan Yew. I'm so used to calling Dr. Yong. And thank you for having me on this program. For me, again, when the journey was, I wouldn't use the word Ayurveda at that time. When I was young, I used to suffer a lot from gastritis, right? My father would take me back and forth to SGH. And they put the scope and they say nothing wrong with the stomach. But I love chili, which I shouldn't take, but I just love. And then every time it will just flare up and then it will be uncontrollable and I would be in terrible pain. And back and forth, they would take me to the doctors and they would give a kind of a white liquid, but even that didn't work. One day, so one day my grandmother was visiting me, my father's mother, and she's only a washerwoman, that we would say only. But she saw me struggling and suffering, and then she goes, "Oh, you are in pain." I said, "Yeah." And I told her what it was. She said, "Wait." She went to the kitchen. She concocted a kind of a porridge. I ate it. Just like that, the pain went away.
Wow.
Like shock. I said, "Oh my God, this woman who's no education, I'm suffering." So it doesn't matter whether it's a doctor, hospital, or what, but I am suffering and I am in pain. And the person who cured me of my pain, relieved me of years of so-called misery, was the simple washerwoman who came to my aid. So that I was only 15 years old.
Oh, and you were suffering this gastritis for a few years by then already.
Few years prior to that, yeah.
Were you ever admitted for that?
Not admitted, but once I had to do a scope to see whether there was
Yeah,
any
it's that
kind
bad,
of
huh?
ulcer inside, but I didn't have. So it was interesting experience for me. So that kind of etched in my mind. What does this woman know that a lot of other doctors didn't know? I'm not putting them down, but this woman like started shining in my inner consciousness. So I left that. Just it was there, but obviously it was deep. I also studied biology when I was in secondary school, and that was my favorite subject. I was not a science student. I was an art student, but at that time, the education system, I do not know how it is now. We studied biology. So Sec 3, Sec 4, I studied biology, and I loved biology. So that is the only subject I would go out of my textbook. My father had that Britannica encyclopedia at that time. So I would go research on the eyes, on the stomach, everything. So no Google at that time.
Yes.
So and my work, like always ask question. And I remember asking my biology teacher, what causes the heart to beat? Like going to the cause, what causes this? So finally we came to the part where she says the heart beats that circulates the blood. Then I say, what causes the heart to beat? And then she goes, the pacemaker. And I say, what causes the pacemaker to start? Then we are going into the realm of spirituality,
Organizing intelligence.
Yeah. So she was like quite surprised at my question. At the same time, she couldn't answer. So then that was another question in my head. What is causing all this body to function? Then again, I put that aside, typical Singaporean, getting to school, going to college and working. And also another thing I would say played a significant role in my life is I'm an art stream student. I went to Nanyang Junior College. And at that time, if you're arts, you do arts. If you're in science, you do science. I was in art stream. I didn't want to do economics because my numbers are really very bad. I cannot count more than 10. I asked if instead of economics, I could do biology. And actually, at that time, they allowed. So I was the only art student, if I'm not mistaken, there doing art stream. But then when all my classmates would go for economic class, I would go for the science biology class. So we did the dissecting of the rabbit, and also that really knowing the human body, fascinated by the human body. So that, in a way, was in the forefront from secondary to college, and then went to university, did philosophy and all. But when I look back now in my life, I find that there was a kind of a journey because I also studied philosophy as a major. So all that later came into my life like a funnel, like everything coming. And then I stumbled into Ayurveda. And as for yoga, what happened was I completed my university Bachelor of Arts, and my sisters were going to go to Australia to continue their studies. And I was going to go and join them as well. So, and at that time it was not online, so we had to go through the travel agency to book the ticket. And I had one ticket booked to Australia. And during that time, S. Vyasa, my parents knew all those people there, S. Vyasa, they would send some teachers to Singapore to try and see what they can do in Singapore, and that yoga teacher would stay in our house. So every morning he would have yoga classes for us. So I'll also join the yoga class. And he said, why don't you go to India to learn yoga? So I had one ticket booked to go to Australia to do my master's, and one ticket booked to go to India to do yoga.
Interesting. And how do you decide?
My mother was telling me, look, you've already got this degree. I think yoga will be useful for you. My father wanted me to do masters. So last minute, I just decided something in me. Sometimes there's something your intuition says, and then I decided I will do yoga, and I went there. The best thing that I did. And I just was at a crossroad in my life, what to do. In 1995, I was working, very successful. But for me, there was something missing in my life. Even though I was earning money, I was working in IBM at that time, and all those, I was like, something was missing. So when I went to that yoga center in SVSI in Bangalore, that was the best thing that happened to me, because they were not offering yoga class for me to just relax. They only offered yoga teacher training. So I was supposed to be there 1 month, but I stayed 5 months.
Nice. The calling to call you there, and also it probably filled a hole somewhere in your heart that you didn't even know, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But when I came back again, started working, and still that hole was there. Eventually, working here, working there, finally, I decided that I'm going to drop everything. My heart's calling is Ayurveda, yoga. Ayurveda also, I stumbled upon, I thought then, but I realized now I didn't stumble upon it. I feel that it was all meant to be. And then that's where I met Michael in the Ayurveda class. So Michael, all of us were attending an Ayurveda class in Singapore.
I see.
And in that class, we learned about Sushruta, who is the father of surgery. And on you, I tell you, Sushruta is a person 5,500 whatever years ago. He discovered no surgery. And he has there in his book step-by-step procedure on how to do no surgery. So question came to my mind, 5,000 years ago, why would they want to do no surgery? There weren't any Hollywood stars and all who wanted to do
True.
But it was the war, it was disease. How he does the step-by-step procedure is actually taking a leaf, drawing the outline of the nose, and then drawing the outline here, and then cutting it, and then peeling it. At that time, it was from the top. So you peel off that skin with the blood flowing. The nose has been cut off. Then you scrape that to let the blood flow. You twist that flap and stick it because the nose bleeds, that blood, it sticks there, and you stick up to a stem, tree stem. You make a hole so that the patient can breathe. I was amazed. Something in me was screaming, you have to tell this to everybody. You have to tell this to everybody. And then we started the Ayurveda Association of Singapore because I can't tell everybody without setting up an association.
Wow, amazing. It probably took a great leap of faith, right, to do that. What I know what drives you, the thought, I must share this with somebody. But it's like such a huge decision, and then leaving a comfy job, paying job. How did you cross that barrier?
The first time was yoga. I knew in my heart that was the calling, but it wasn't paying. So this was back in 1995. And that time yoga was not seen as something good. And then people, my relation all will say, what, you got so many degrees, go and get a proper job. So I went to get a proper job, but my heart was not my heart was feeling empty. And I listened to all these people. So then in 2004 or so, when I came across Ayurveda, I attended the class and all. Again, the same, my soul was jumping and saying, get into this. So then came a choice. Do I want to listen to people and get a proper job, or do I want to listen to my soul calling, or whatever you want to call it?
The second chance was given to you. What are you going to do now?
Exactly. I just decided I had enough. I was in the corporate world. I said it was paying a lot of money, but the calling was so strong. I stepped back and let the calling take charge.
It's so amazing to hear your story, because I can see parallels. Back in 2015, I was a bit lost, and then something told me that my role is to marry Eastern and Western to practice medicine with acupuncture, because acupuncture can actually fill a gap for people with a lot of aches and pains, and then putting on plasters, taking painkillers is not the solution. And when I did that, I was really happy. Of course, subsequently, I migrated to Singapore, and things were a bit different. I could not practice that form of I would say integration. And I would say that right now, what I'm doing is again fulfilling my calling to be again the bridge between Western medicine and the other alternative therapies. And that's actually why we're having this conversation today. And it's so amazing to hear your story, and I'm like happy to find a compassion. Something through your journey in Ayurveda and yoga, what are your major epiphanies or realizations that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, I can write an encyclopedia about it.
I'm sure you can.
Yoga, I do not know why. I'm from Singapore, so we never learned Sanskrit. I've never heard of Sanskrit, and my parents were on the religious side. So we were young, that was our holiday, go to the temple and all. It doesn't resonate with me, all this Sanskrit word. But when I went to S. Vyasa to learn yoga, they had a timetable, and one of it was the chanting of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Gita is not religious. Bhagavad Gita is more about knowing your true nature, who you really are. So because it's the timetable, I went. I didn't understand a single thing, but my soul was jumping, happy, and it's what is happening here. I'm hearing something and something is happening, but I didn't understand. So that was one of it. One thing that made me think as well.
The term music for your soul came up in me. Although you don't understand it, but it's music for your soul.
Yes. Oh, that's a good way of putting it. Music for my soul, right? Yes. And then when I stayed there, I was only meant to stay there 1 month, and I was at a crossroad. Something was pulling me to stay there that I stayed on for 5 months. So much so, my father, I think, was freaking out. He sent my brother and sister-in-law for a holiday and said, bring her back. And I just didn't want to go anywhere. So my brother and sister-in-law came, then they went to see Mysore and all. I just did not want to leave that place. There was something so powerful that was holding me back, not the content per se. And then I started experiencing certain things which is very personal to me that I couldn't understand, because here I am from the corporate world, very cut and dry. The Vasanthi that is very cut and dry must be, and here I'm experiencing things that, what? So I then decided that I will also be a little bit more open and receptive. And the third thing is, at that time, I don't know if they still have it, they used to have school holiday programs for young children. Once a week. So 1 week, once a group of students will come and stay there and then have some classes and all on yoga. They will do a before and after test, which is very interesting because the man who started S. Vyasa is a scientist from NASA formerly. So for him, research is very important. So they did a lot of motor skill and all those with the kids, the memory and all those. And then on the last day, 10th day, they will do a same test and then see how the children have improved. I was part of that as well, and I saw the science behind it. Right. So that time, because it was 1995, we could communicate directly with Dr. Nagendra. He was the key man there. So now it's all you speak only to the teachers because he's very busy. And our class was a small group of people, and he was our lecturer. And in one class, one student asked, why, Guruji, from NASA, why did you come to yoga? His answer struck me. He said, he was a scientist, and he said there's some things that science cannot answer, especially with the discovery of atom. You go beyond the atom and you have all this. And he would talk about Fritjof Chopra, that guy who wrote that book, The Tao of Physics. Yeah. So he said that made him think that science has its limitation because it's only focusing on the physical world. At that time, quantum science was not really popular. And he said, Fritjof Chopra, he started talking about his book, and he said that made him think. And then he came back to India and he started the S. Vyasa. So that was the epiphany, or whatever you call that, really triggered me, and music for my soul, as you put it.
Yes, and then he's like the inspiration for you also to take that leap. Yeah.
Yes. So then that was yoga. And then I was continuing with yoga, teaching and all those. And then I was invited to give a talk in one organization. They had a kind of a fair, Yoga Ayurveda. And there was one guy talking about Ayurveda. And I'm sitting there, I talked about yoga. He was the next speaker. I never heard of Ayurveda in my whole life.
Although when you mentioned your story, like grandma treated you with herbs, but that time that term was not used.
That was what they call the folk medicine. The term Ayurveda I've not heard of. So then I was quite amazed, and then we connected, and then I started asking questions. Again, my soul was jumping. What is this? What is the Ayurveda? Yes, my grandmother, all this. Without my thinking mind, I just allowed it to flow. And then there came an opportunity for me to learn a course, a structured course. Because this guy, when we have lunch, he will just give gems and all those. And then when I attended the structured course where I met Michael, and then the Sushruta, I told you, that was an epiphany. That was the major thing. Something was bursting out from me saying that I have to talk, I have to talk. And then when we set up the association, just like that, without actively going out and asking, do you want to talk? It just started coming. Will you give a talk? Will you give a talk? So we gave a talk. Somebody in the audience will say, can you give a talk in our institution? Can you give a talk in our institution? So it started spreading that way. And when we started giving talks, I tell you, it was just amazing, the participants' response. That was very dynamic. It was organic. Everyone was uplifted. It was not sitting there and going, just like the whole room was filled with energy.
Nice.
So that's when it just started flowing.
It seems like when you tap into your calling, the universe aligns and brings the necessary people to you, and then you got invited to do things, and your participants were like full on participative. Yes. Amazing.
Yes. And the last thing was, after a while, I took a short break because I was so actively involved. My mom was sick. I looked after her. She passed on in 2016. Then 100% focus on looking after father from 2017. She passed on December 2016. So 100% focus on father. So I put everything else aside. And when father passed on in August 2018, so I was grieving as well, but still giving my talk. I realized one thing, Kuan Yew, like I'm grieving. After my mother passed on, in the funeral, less than 1 week, I was invited to give a talk. I was waiting for the participants to come. I still thinking of my mother, but the moment I stood and started speaking, everything took a backstage and just started talking. Nobody would be guessing that Vasanthi is going through grief. Then after, when father passed on, I was going for a walk, and I said, okay, now that everything I've put aside, now I've got to reignite this whole thing about Ayurveda. I love Ayurveda. I just said, what should I do? When I returned home, I had received a text from Dr. Gigi Gangadharan to say they have formed a small group, students all learning Ashtanga Hridaya, the classical Ayurveda text, by shloka, all the verses, step by step. Everything. Do I want to join the club? It was again like dryness. I was going through grief as like somebody pouring milk over me. Thank you so much. And then everything was reignited. It was just, the journey had been absolutely amazing. And I knew in my heart that even if I try to move away from me, something will pull me back. Something pulls me back. So I just said, okay, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Indeed. Yeah, it's in Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, right? The person will get a calling, initially will deny it, subsequently something will come, and then you pull him out of the mundane, dreary, ordinary life, and then experience the splendor. Then there will be also the hero's test your resolve, test your how dedicated are you to this. Something bad will happen, and then somehow magical things will happen. People will come into your life to give you the message again that this is what you should be doing. And then you realize that, oh yeah, I got sidetracked. And this, I need to go back on this.
Exactly. Actually, when you say something bad will happen, maybe at that time my thinking was different. Now, when anybody says something bad is happening, actually I see there's actually a good in it.
Yes. Everything happens for a reason. Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason. So I now, whenever anything bad happens, I say, okay, there must be some good in it. Let's look at the good of it. And then it'll just come all the good things. And I say, actually, yes, it happened for a reason to bring us back into that path of light, so to speak.
Yes.
So all of us have a light journey. All of us have a journey, but we deviate and go into what we would say maybe there's no light.
Yes.
So then we are stumbling. What should I do? What should I do? And then the darker it gets, the more you want to get into the light.
Yes.
That's the way I look at it.
Yes. When we are not doing the things that we are supposed to, we feel unfulfilled. We feel lost. We feel that there's really something missing. And once we tap into the path or the flow that we should be in, we come alive again.
Yes. Yeah. Kuan Yew, when my father was his Parkinson's patient and he was bedridden, he was silent most of the time after mother passed on. I learned a lot through his silence. It was just amazing. Words cannot explain that. Feel him. It's like there was a time Michael, Winnie, and I went for a conference on mindfulness. I'm sitting there, but I could feel the energy just calling me back, and sometimes just sitting there. And sometimes I would ask him some questions, and the words of wisdom that would come out from his mouth, It's just amazing. So I never saw him as a Parkinson patient. I must say towards the end, like for me, my father was a spiritual guide.
Mm.
From all my relatives' perspective, they saw Vasanthi as a dutiful daughter, looking after a father as a duty. But for me, no, I was gaining so much from him. Nobody could see it, nobody could understand it, but probably you understand. But I can understand now when they say silence is really powerful. I experienced that with my father.
Oh, as in because of Parkinson's, he is not a very conversational, but then at the moments of getting connected with him, when you ask him questions, he could give you like very wholesome answers.
No, actually, he is a very talkative person. He loves talking. So, but after mother passed on, he became very
I
silent.
understand.
Yeah, so he was more introspective. So, like some very simple things, right? Like father used to be very religious and go to temple. So one day I asked him, he said something he was saying about temple. We were talking about temple. And I say, why is there a need to go to temple? He said, first he said, God is within. I said, okay, then why do you go to temple? His answer was spontaneous, no thinking. He just said, you need a plate to put the food. You don't put food on the floor. You put the food on the plate to eat. But the food is more important, not the plate. But you also need the plate.
Wow.
You
Wow.
a Parkinson's patient where doctors say they're no cognition, they are dumb and all those. I can tell you this man was the most wise, intelligent man in the last phase of his life. I would never consider him as what all the doctors put the label on. No, I learned so much from him. See how profound that is. And it came out spontaneously.
Wow. And circling back to talking about paths, it's like things happen for a reason, and usually things happen to sculpt us, to train us, to let us evolve to the next version of us. And things happen so that we experience certain things and we equip ourselves with certain tools to get us ready for the next phase of enlightenment, the next phase of our journey. Yeah, do you think so?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When I look back at my life now, what I thought was an accident or it just happened, like for example, how can an art student learn biology? I was the only one that was a reason. And then I went to university, I studied philosophy. So everything was coming like in place. So when I step back and I look, and when my father passed on, we went through his cupboard. He had lots of these ancient scriptures that he was reading. And the way he would underline those things, the same way I would read and underline certain key things. And I'm like, there's been a path. And every time I want to do something, there's a reason for me to be there. And when my father was like admitted to the hospital, there were times I have to travel. I cancel the trip to be with father. And from outside circle, everybody thought, oh, she's sacrificing her talk that I could get more publicity. But actually, I wasn't sacrificing because it brought me to reality, so-called reality of this world, because I saw what was happening in the medical world for patients that kind of disheartened me and wanted me to go more into alternative, right? Like my father, I'm not like, I understand sometimes medical system has to do what it has to do, like taking father to this specialist, to that specialist, all there. And when this goes wrong, they will say, why? But I know from my perspective, that's not the case. So these things all open my eyes. Their sickness. Do you understand? So in everything, their sickness opened my eyes, brought me to the hospital to look at things and say, okay, maybe there's a stronger need to talk to people about taking care of their own body, to your own wellness.
And currently, what Vasanthi is doing to my audience is that she is actively promoting and educating awareness of Ayurveda. And this, what she experienced in her life, becomes the drive for her to share, to share her understanding and her knowledge. It also reminds me that as I grow, I used to think that I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. I have interest in many things that don't make sense and they don't marry, like arts and science marrying together. And then people are like, why are you doing this? Why you go and learn acupuncture? Why you go and learn hypnosis? Why you go and learn this? Why you go and learn that? But now at this point in time, as I look back, that everything is, the puzzle is coming. Everything is fitting. It allows me to be this bridge And then I understand and I can help bring awareness, and I can, how do you say, fill in the blanks where there are blanks, so that a more holistic or more wholesome picture gets formed. And I'm really grateful for whatever happened to my life. Although things look really bad, really grim, I think it all happened for a reason also.
Yes, it definitely happened for a reason, not that I think. Definitely to bring you back, to bring everyone back to that path. Like it's up to us whether we want to continue with that path. That's the way I look at it.
And also to illustrate and elaborate a little bit, I would say that Western medicine has its strengths. It's definitely very powerful when it comes to surgeries, when it comes to infectious disease, and also acute treatment. But I would say that there are certain aspects of disease and illness where Western medicine may not be the sole and only way, because it is found wanting and lacking in certain things like autoimmune diseases, chronic diseases. It can control the condition, but rarely can it really go to the root cause and eliminate it. And we need to fall on other alternative therapies. Do you have any experiences that illustrate this point?
Oh yeah, plenty. Again, like I can write an encyclopedia. Just before that, there was a time when we talk about the path. I was invited to speak at a conference where the speaker dropped out last minute. So they filled me in and asked would I said, fine, I'll go. And at that time, the audience, there was one lady from Taiwan. She runs the Taiwan hospital, Sichuan Hospital, one of the largest hospital in Taiwan. She is the daughter of the CEO of that hospital.
Wow.
So after I gave my talk on Ayurveda, she said, we've all been wanting to learn about Ayurveda. Thank you so much for the talk. She invited me over to the hospital to give a talk to the doctors. Now here, I'm not a doctor, but I'm so confident about Ayurveda. All I did was talk about Ayurveda. They became so excited. They started inviting me every year, sometimes twice a year, to talk about Ayurveda there. And then they started marrying Ayurveda, nutrition, lifestyle, and I started teaching yoga as well to some of the doctors and nurses, because they themselves say the same thing that you say. They are doctors. They run the hospital. It's one of the largest hospital. But the CEO would invite me every now and then to do yoga teacher training for the doctors, for the nurses, for the staff, because he always tells me medicine is good, but it's a short-term solution. We need something more than that.
Wow.
That itself, you can see the medical industry being really proactive about it. And in 2000, Taiwan and India, Ayurveda signed an MOU to promote Ayurveda in Taiwan. And again, there they invited me to give a talk on Ayurveda. So you can see that hospitals are opening up their eyes as well in Taiwan. I don't see it happening. And where I met you was the Malaysia Medical Association that organized the alternative medicine, not Singapore as well. So I find that in Asia, maybe Taiwan is taking the lead there from that side. Malaysia is also really very good, because Dr. Anil, who is at that time was also the key person for the Malaysia Medical Association and promoting alternative medicine, to try and marry it, is really very good. Right? So that's one, the holistic part. Now, for me, personal experience, his father had Parkinson's, right? So Parkinson in Ayurveda, they call it a drying disease. We will talk about it later, but about the flow. So the body has a natural flow of the blood circulates, has to go from the heart and all those. But there's a force that allows the circulation, that is called the flow. That's called the prana. All right. The movement, the vayu, they call that it from an Ayurveda and Yoga perspective. Now, father would constantly complain of heart pain, right? So a couple of times we rushed him to the hospital. They do all the ECG or EEG, whatever, and then they say the structure is fine. The structure is fine. This went about 3-4 times, right? Then the third time when it happened, I said, this man is having heart pain. Every time he goes to the hospital, he has the waiting period is about 13 hours in the emergency room and all those. And there was once one whole day. So it's getting just too crowded. So he used to suffer from constipation. And then I got a bit tired rushing to hospital every now and then. And I texted my Ayurveda doctor in India and I said, father is complaining of heart pain again, but modern medicine is always saying there's nothing wrong with his heart. First question he asked me, is your father having constipation? So heart is here in the upper hand, constipation is the lower end. But the question he asked, a cardiologist will be looking, what's wrong with this man? I said, yes, father suffers from constipation. He said, give him suppository immediately. So we gave him suppository, which is modern medicine, which is good. I married both for my father's care. So we gave suppository. The moment the bowel was clear, his heart was not having any pain. So how Ayurveda explained is from your navel downwards, it's a downward movement of the prana, of the vayu. So navel downwards, so for the intestine to clear its system, it's the downward movement that is responsible for bowel movement, for urination, for gestation, for flatulence, all these to clear the system, downward movement. Now, when that downward movement is blocked by bowel, it's not moving, so it's blocked, that movement then goes up, which you cannot see in machines. So it moves upwards and presses against the diaphragm. Then the diaphragm presses against the heart. Do you understand? Then the heart feels the air, and the air you cannot measure with machine. You understand? So he started feeling the heart. Now, when you look at ladies going through menopause and all, where they are very emotional, then that movement goes up further and goes up this way. So, according to Ayurveda, the movement here is downward and upward. This flow is this way. But because of constipation for ladies, it is the menstrual thing. So it's moving, pushing up. Then this natural flow is getting affected. Do you understand?
Yes.
Then ladies become emotional, angry, and all those. It's not their fault. It's the flow that's affecting the physical manifestation. So the invisible flow, natural flow is affected, which is showing up in physical.
Indeed. And I also like to link back a little bit. I just wanted to talk about how I came across Ayurveda as well. And then we'll see that things actually, they match. So I was like in India back in 2018, taking my exam for my membership of the Royal College of Physicians at Edinburgh. My exam was in Kerala. So I went to Ama's ashram. And then there, I attended the yoga classes. I also meditated there. And I also attended the bhajans, and I had a chance to meet an Ayurvedic practitioner. So he told me about the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and he measured my limb lengths. And then after that, he told me that, this component you are 30%, this component you are 45%, this component you are the remaining percentages. Based on this analysis, you are susceptible to certain things. So you should stay off spicy food. You need to stay off a certain kind of banana. You cannot take pineapples. And of course, that time I didn't have any issues. So it's good to know, but I may not want to practice the advice. And then interestingly, the maybe 3-4 years ago, I started to take a circle DNA test. And then the circle DNA test also tells me the same thing. You cannot take spicy food because from the DNA point of view, you are susceptible to spicy food. And indeed, as I get older, I'm more and more susceptible to spicy food. My mouth can tolerate it very well, but my gut cannot. Then I'll need to go to the bathroom. And also recently, I went to see a traditional Chinese physician, and him, through palpating my artery over at my brachial artery, tells me that based on this, you have hemorrhoids. And I said that, but it has not been acting up for the past 3-4 years. He said that, but it's still there. And then he said that, again, you cannot take spicy food. Also, your stomach, your gas has an issue as well. No spicy food, no bananas, no pineapples. I'm like, oh man, this matches like the diagnosis done 5-6 years back by a separate practitioner on a separate continent. And in science, there's this thing where it's called consilience. It's when researchers or scientists working independently, like they do not know what each other is working on. Maybe they may be in separate continents, separate countries. They do their own research. And then they find that the conclusions of the research actually match each other. And then what it means is that this evidence is very strong. When you use different methodologies, but you arrive at the same conclusion. And I find it very interesting that in TCM, Chinese medicine, as well as Ayurveda, they actually share the same herbs, and they actually share certain principles in Chinese, we have which is earth, water, wood, metal, as well as 金木水火土. I think I missed fire there. I think Ayurveda is fire, water, earth, air, and ether. Is that right?
Yeah. So even though we have those five, we call them principles, actually.
Principles.
I remember watching not a documentary, a class on chemistry from one lecturer in Berkeley, if I'm not mistaken. I like watching all this so that I can correlate everything. And he was criticizing the Chinese medicine to say they only have 5 elements, but look, our chemistry table has 111 or 14. Then I said, because the choice of word element is not that element, it's a principle.
Correct.
Now, Ayurveda has these 5 principles, but these 5 principles they have to be mentioned in order, as in space, air, fire, water, earth, because if I take the example of ice cube, not the ice as in nowadays the young I come from the generation ice means the ice cube. Okay. So when I use the word ice, I hope YouTube doesn't say, oh, ice, then now cancel this podcast. Ice cube is earth. That means it's solidified. So you come, creation is this way, destruction is this way. So ice is solidified. Heat is inherently present in all matter. Everything has heat present. So from solidified ice, when you leave it out, it starts melting, it becomes water. Then fire is present everywhere. Then it becomes space. It becomes vapor, air, and then it goes into space. So creation is also space. From space, slowly it becomes air, and then there's fire inherently present, and then it becomes water, it becomes earth. So in Ayurveda, when we talk about the 5 principles, we talk usually in order because you're talking about creation and destruction. So-called destruction is again not its relation, right?
Yes.
So when we look at the human body, we have space. Space is everywhere in the universe. Space is also in my eye, the eye socket, nose, ear, mouth, gut, all this space. So space allows for things to happen. Without the gut space, I cannot put food in there. Without space here, I can't hear. So without space, I can't smell. So space is the fundamental which has everything, which quantum science is now acknowledging. I love marrying quantum science with Ayurveda. So from space come movement. So our eyelid movement, as I'm talking, the vocal cord movement, the mouth movement, my leg and hand. So both voluntary and involuntary movement will fall under the category of air. So technically speaking, it's not air, it is movement. So if a person has stroke, then Ayurveda say the movement is not happening properly. Let's look at working on the movement aspect. Do you understand?
Yes.
Then from movement, as there's a lot of movement, there's friction happening. That friction causes that heat, that fire. So even though they use the word fire, is actually transformation. So when I eat banana, which I know you can't eat banana, but when I eat banana, the banana, when you go to toilet, banana doesn't come out. Right? It is transformed.
Yes.
Every transformation at the macro level and even at the micro level, at the cellular level, the nutrients then is transformed into energy. Right? So then that is transformation aspect. Then the creation also has liquidity. Our body, of course, everywhere is transformation happening with the skin, with the eyes, with the food, everything. And then the liquidity is all that mucus, the eye, the blood, anything that is mucousy. Right? Even the cell is more water, that base itself, it's more mucousy. So they call that water. So we don't mean real literal water, but the liquidity principle. So the principle of liquidity, the principle of transformation, the principle of movement, whatever movement does, we look at the principle behind it. Finally comes the formation, the physical human body. The formation, the earth. So this is a physical thing. So this is called earth. So not earth as in physical earth, but the principle of solidification. That's such a word. Solidifying. Right? So that principle. So that's what we mean, the 5 principles. And using these principles, then the physician will see how to heal, how to prevent, how to cure. So this is how they look at it.
In TCM as well, also there is a certain arrangement of the principal elements. And then indeed, same like Ayurveda, they also like constructive and also destructive relationships. And in terms of transformation, what I know is that In Chinese medicine, we say there's Jing, which is the essence, and then which in our body becomes Qi, prana. And then after that, if you develop your prana, and then you reach Shen, which is a spirit. And also one thing transforms to the other in the TCM way. And it's just amazing how separate cultures not intermingling maybe 5,000 years ago, and then the gurus and then the shifu and the senseis, they arrive at the same conclusion. And you also find that in the name for energy or prana or ki or mana or lung. There are separate cultures in the world have the same term, although these cultures may have never met so many years ago, but they have the same word for this invisible, subtle energy that permeates our body. This is just amazing to me.
Yeah, actually, Ayurveda makes it very clear that when you study the principle, you then can apply it in another place. So I think if everyone, like you mentioned, all this, they all talk about the principles. The principle of gravity doesn't matter, only whoever discovered that it's not just going to be in that country in the West. Gravity is gravity. So even if I'm in Singapore, it's gravity. If I'm in India, it's gravity. If I'm in China, it's gravity. If I know the principle, I apply it.
Yes.
I know the principle of electricity, I apply it. Likewise, these 5 principles, all pervasive, then in each location, based on the weather, based on the culture, based on your lifestyle, you adapt, you change it. And that's how I feel they all molded and became separate, so to speak, medicinal or holistic system, but actually underlying, they are all the same.
Yes, underlying, they are all the same. And I think in Ayurveda also, it mentions that if you happen to have this condition, the treatment for this condition will be located within your locality. And a person having this condition in China, the herbs that can treat this condition will be found in this locality. Yeah.
Exactly. So you don't have to go to India to go get Ayurveda medicine. In Singapore itself, you know how the system works, and then your herbs will be different because you were born and brought up here. Like in my case, I'm born and brought up here. Certain herbs that the people in India use, my mom never used. She used more Malaysian, Chinese. We are Malay, Chinese and all, right? So few generation, I think we must be about 3-4 generations Singaporean or Malaysian. And then, so we never had certain food, and our food cooking is more Chinese, Malay style of cooking. We are not Peranakan, but so this is where my grandmother probably picked it up from there, because this particular concoction is not in Ayurveda recipe. So it has been evolve the food also, everything, like you say, that herb is within that certain radius, it works for you. That is why you see a lot of this research, they say, oh look, this, sometimes there's conflicting research, right? As much as you talked about that coherence in same countries, different countries, they get same results, sometimes you get different results, because it may not work for my body. It may work for you, because like you say, you may have to refrain from banana, but a Vata person has to take banana because it's mucus. They have more drying principle in them, so they need more of this heavy and mucusy thing. So what works for you may not work for Vata. So you want to do research on that product itself, banana itself. It's not going to work, because you need to see on the person that is going to transform.
Yes.
So that's what Ayurveda talks about. You cannot take it in segments. You must take it as a whole, the food itself, as well as the person and where they are living, as well as the lifestyle. I'm a Singaporean. My niece is a Singaporean, but both our lifestyle is different. I could be a Pitta, she could be a Pitta, but our lifestyle is different. What works for me may not work for her.
Yes.
It is just not about Pitta. It's not just about the food. You have to take so many factors into consideration.
Yes. I would say that sometimes Western medicine is very symptom driven. It can be very segmented. Whereas for the alternative healing, Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, it takes the whole person aspect and considers a lot of things that, although in Western medicine, I take a social history, I take a diet history, but then we do not use that in our, the diagnostic framework in a certain sense. Although if you take like spicy food, you go to the toilet, sometimes we make that correlation, but then it's not the same. Yeah.
I usually give this example, rather it just came to me recently. Car is an inanimate object. Everyone treasures their car. In Singapore, it's like COE, BMW and all. Your car, you treasure it so much, which you're not going to take with you when you die. But the car, if something you're driving the car and then you're feeling really uncomfortable, you know something is wrong with the car, you take the car to a mechanic and he says, yeah, I think something is wrong with the car. Let me check. He checks everything and say, actually, I cannot find anything wrong. I think there could be something wrong with the engine, but I am not a specialist in engine. I'll charge you this much for looking for checking it out. But I don't know what's the problem. You need to take your car to another mechanic who actually specializes his engine. So you pay this guy, you take your car to another mechanic. He looks through the engine, everything. He says, your engine is working fine, but something else is wrong with your car. Perhaps it could be connected to your that equipment that is, I'm not a car person, so that tool that is connecting to the tire. So he charges you for checking the engine and saying nothing wrong with the engine. And then he say you have to take your car to another mechanic who actually specializes in this aspect of the tire and all. So you take your car to different parts. Do you think any human being will be happy with that situation?
No.
They will grumble, they will complain, they will do all kind of things, and then they will have a big unhappiness there. But isn't that what we are doing to our body? I saw that with my parents. You're a liver, okay, it's a liver problem, go to the liver specialist. I've got nothing against them, but I'm telling them, what about this? Oh, you have to go to that doctor. This one is that you have to go to that doctor. Anything you have to go here, you have to go here. It is one body. It is one human body, and this is what I am living in. The car is not important. This is what I'm living in, but yet no one seemed to say anything. But the one cell, the sperm, the ovum, becomes one cell. This one cell becomes trillions of cells. So we have to think and say this one cell became multitude of cells. We became one body. How can I segment it? How can I allow myself to be segmented like this? Do you understand? So that's why I am passionate about educating people and say, first, know your body before you just go ahead and do something else.
Know your body and then understand yourself, your body, and not surrender everything to someone else so that and then just follow blindly without understanding whether this can apply to your own situation or not. And yes, I agree on that also. There is definitely an issue of hyper compartmentalization in medicine, and from one specialty you get referred to another, and then you go on a merry-go-round, and this is what I hear from my patients. And then they never get to the root cause of the problem. And then in the end, sometimes it's the GP that needs to tie up everything for the specialist, because the specialist is just focused on that particular window. Specialties also, there's this ongoing inside joke that says last time they're just orthopedics. Now there's the foot and ankle specialist, knee specialist, shoulder specialist, and then 30, 40 years on, then you may be going to see this doctor and then say that, oh, I have this pinky little finger pain. And then the doctor says, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but sorry, I can't do anything for you because I'm a town specialist. Let me write a referral letter for you to see a pinky specialist. And I also fear that happening, and it's just not fair and not logical and not efficient, and also monetarily such a wastage to go round and round in circles.
I think the ownership, people have to start taking ownership of their own body, understand their body, how the cell just generates, just a simple basic, and then use your own consciousness to say that is this the right thing to do. But I'm not going to be one of those that fighting the system. I rather educate the people and just make them feel that yes, this is true. If I will not accept that for a car, which is inanimate, which is not something I live in every day, it's not my body. If I will not let that happen to a car, how come I'm letting it happen to my body?
Yes.
On this note, I have to say very sadly, Ayurveda and Yoga, even though they are holistic, sadly, they are now being segmented as well. So if you look at Ayurveda, it says a human component or holistic is made up of what we call the true self. We have what we call the mind component, which has separate aspect. We have what we call the perception, how we perceive the world. And then we have the physical body. When we are connected to our true self, like you say, the soul's purpose, when we are connected to the true self, the flow will be natural and the manifestation in the body will also be natural, which means we will be naturally healthy. When that flow is unnatural, especially with the mind, And interestingly, it's the middle finger. The mind has its own components and what you call the ego. The ego is not a negative word, but it's me. I am more important. My education, that separation that causes wrong perception, that causes wrong flow in the body, which then manifests as disease. Do you understand? So now yoga is only focusing on asana. Asana is different from yoga. Asana is posture, but they don't work on the whole flow. They don't talk about the true self. Ayurveda is also focusing only on the body, the nutrition. Ayurveda makes it very clear. You can eat whatever you like. You can go to the best Ayurveda doctor, but your thinking is not right thinking. If you don't connect to your true self, this is not going to be a long-term solution.
Indeed.
It also treats symptoms. Right now, sadly, Ayurveda and yoga treating symptoms, they don't look at the holistic part of it, right? So it is actually a whole combination of everything. But I think that's where, again, I'm educating people about yoga is not asana, but you have to go beyond that. We conduct like pranayama classes to allow the flow because everybody's doing asana, and asana has become more a ego thing. I can do this posture. I can do that posture.
And they compete to see who can do.
Yeah.
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 And I think yoga, the rule of yoga is to yoke, which is to actually carry. And then the asanas actually is to prepare the body for the meditation, to prepare for the next step. Is that right to say?
Yeah. So our mind is constantly going out all direction. So asana is to stable the body. So when you stable the body, you're at least stabling the mind. For example, when you can't sleep, you're restless all the time. If you keep moving, you become even more restless. So one technique is, even if you can't sleep, stay still in that posture. Tell your mind, I will not move. Slowly your mind will calm down and you can sleep. So sleep is a mind issue. So asana allows the body to be stable. And technically, or the ancient olden times, you stay in one asana for about what they call one muhurta, 48 minutes.
Wow.
So if I go to a yoga center and they say we teach you one asana 48 minutes, but now they teach, I want 1,200 for a package and I'll teach you 1,200 posture. It's not working that way. So when the body is stable, your mind becomes stable and your perception becomes clear. So your clarity is there. And when clarity is there, you know what is right, what food to eat. If I'm diabetes, I shouldn't be eating sugar. The clarity comes in, right? So then you abide in your true self. And when you abide in the true self, it flows. So that way, yoga means unite, to unite with your true self, to become to one with your true self. But now people are so focused on the body. Who can do this posture? I can do headstand while I'm pregnant. I can do this. I can do this. And it becomes a competition that you are even moving further away from what yoga was advocating. And when I studied yoga and Ayurveda, I realized these two are actually should be closely. They shouldn't study Ayurveda separately. They shouldn't study yoga separately. These two are one science, because your mind, the flow, is part of the body.
Yes.
So even that there right now is not the holistic thing, but older doctors like Dr. G.G. Gangadharan, there are certain Vaidyas who have studied the olden way of Ayurveda. They marry both yoga and Ayurveda.
The way it's meant to be.
Yeah, the way it is meant to be.
Yeah. I find parallels in that, because the system that I wouldn't say develop, it probably happened before, but I just bring it all together that we all have, to facilitate our well-being, to live a thriving, flourishing life. We need to take care of the 6 petals of well-being, which is not only just physical fitness, mental wellness, mental resilience, emotional equilibrium, spirituality, the biofield or the energy medicine part of things, and also the connection between yourself, self-love, your connection with other people, and the connection in the world. Anything missing within these 6 petals, right? Is like what you say, when the mind is, when you don't follow your spirit, you don't follow your calling, what you're supposed to do, everything goes haywire. And any deficiencies in one of these 6, you may be very physically fit, you run and jog every week, but you may still suffer conditions, because the originating issue is probably you have a mental issue that you're dealing with. You have an emotional trauma that you're that you are experiencing a divorce, a separation, and symptoms, disease comes up, not because you're physically not fit, but it's just a whole system. You cannot just separate one of them. And
Yes,
our
that's
body
true.
is made up of 7 major body systems, and they are all linked together like in a chain. If any insufficiencies in the 6 petals, it will first show up in the weakest link in the chain. The weakest link could be either you have a genetic predisposition, you had a childhood injury in a certain part of your body, or the environmental influence that you currently have. Taking alcohol, smoking gives you, you're weaker in that link, and disease tends to show up over there, cancers or whatever. And this holistic system is what people just want quick fix. They want, I think it's the mentality that specialists, you go to that one thing, you'll solve everything. But often it's not the case. And it's very important to let people know aware how to listen to your body, how to know your body. My previous podcast was with Ingo, which was a 6-time Ironman triathlon. And he also says that listening to the body, knowing what your body needs, knowing when it needs rest, knowing what certain types of food you need at a certain time. Nowadays, people, it's like instant gratification. I want this, I want it now. There's no time to stop, pause, and listen to our bodies. And it comes very important for us to do what we are doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Ayurveda talks about 6 stages of disease.
Oh.
The final, so first 4 stage, it's the flow that is a little off balance, right? So we have a natural balance, and then we are not connected to the true self, and then it mind and all those that causes the wrong flow. And then on the 5th stage, it starts manifesting physically. And in the 6th stage, it becomes complicated, like diabetes, eyes goes, complication and all those. You can actually rectify in the first 4 stage itself. So when you feel a bit discomfort, nothing is showing now. We only go to the doctor at this stage. So sometimes people go to a doctor at this stage, but they go to Ayurveda doctor now expecting a fix here, but you got to reverse it. You got to bring your flow back here. That again is education. Otherwise, people will say, okay, I took this herb, it's not working. It is not that way. There's so much of aspect. You got to change diet, lifestyle, thinking. Now only I think modern science is beginning to accept mental well-being. Ayurveda yoga harped about mental health thousands of years ago, that if mental well-being will lead to physical well-being, mental well-being will lead to physical well-being. And very sadly, Ayurveda doesn't focus on that. It still focuses on the physical, all that treatment, the oil treatment, which is very good. So I would rather go on like your true self, your mind, your perception, and your body to both work on all angles, not just on this. All aspect, you work on it concurrently, educate the patient. But you're right, some people don't tell me all this, just give me something to fix it. Education is the only way. I feel people need to be educated, and people need to know for themselves, and they must also be receptive. Kuan Yew, they must be receptive.
Indeed. And true healing takes time because there's so many components to take care of, and it can't be done in one day. It can't be done in 3 days. A lot of people nowadays, they're sick. They get a 2-day MC, and then give me the best antibiotics, give me the best things. I need to get back to work tomorrow. But what the body needs is not medicines. What the body needs is rest. The body needs rest so that it can fight off the infections by itself. And you support it by drinking enough water, resting, and taking medications where it's required. But everybody just wants quick fix, and that's the problem that we're seeing nowadays.
Exactly. And sleep, people used to not see the importance of sleep. Ayurveda talks about 3 pillars of life, and one of the pillar is sleep. And that if you're depriving all these 3 pillars, it can lead to death. And sleep is also referred to as a loving mother, because it rejuvenates your cell. That is the only time. So waking world, wear and tear. The cells are wear and tear, going through all that. Sleep is rejuvenation. That's where the loving mother comes and rejuvenates the cell and all, which now modern science is showing that the lymphatic system, drainages, everything happens during sleep. Ayurveda is actually a huge science. Sadly, people are just focusing on nutrition, treatment. Sleep itself, if you can rectify that, you will see that half of your disease will be, if you can have a balanced sleep, that can lead to, again, mental well-being. All of them are interconnected.
Indeed, sleep is very important. And from the medical standpoint also, when your sleep is haywire, your hormonal regulation, your endocrine system gets haywire. That's why if you have poor sleep, even if you take care of your diet, tendency is that from the hormonal influence part of things, you tend to be bigger size because your body cannot process the things well because the entire system is in havoc. Is there a closing word for our session today that you would like to, a message or something for the people who are listening? And after
Can
that,
I tell us?
yeah, sure.
I thought maybe I'll share a story which I usually share in my class, and a lot of my participants say that's helped them. It's just a story. Like, it's very sadly nowadays schools, they don't tell all these little parables. So my mom used to tell me this, which had a huge impact in my life. There's nothing you'll see. It's focusing more on the true self, not the yoga and Ayurveda part, even though they are holistic. So there was this king and minister. I don't know if you've heard of this story. The king would always rely on his minister for anything that he needs to do. He's always with the minister, wherever he goes with the minister. And the minister always will utter this sentence, everything happens for the ultimate good. Everything happens for the ultimate good. It's a Tamil story, so I'm translating in English. The king loved the minister and they were good and all those. And one day the king accidentally cut off his toe, his whole toe. He was bleeding profusely. The physicians all came, tried to bandage and all those. And the minister was there and he looked at the king and he said, probably it's for the ultimate good. The king got so angry. How dare you? I'm suffering in pain. How can you say this? And he said, guards, put this minister in jail. I don't want to have anything to do with him because I'm in pain. So then the minister went to jail and the king was healed. A few weeks later, everything was healed. And the king went horse riding, which he does all the time. So he went horse riding. He went deep into the forest and he got lost and he was caught by a group of cannibals. You know what are cannibals, right? So cannibals eat human beings. So they tied him up and then did some prayers. They were going to kill him. They stopped. Then they went and whispered something to the chief cannibal. And then the chief looked at the king and he said, you're free to go. We are not going to kill you. The king was surprised. He said, what happened? I thought you guys, will kill you. They say, yeah, in our cannibal group, tribe, we actually will pray to God. We have to sacrifice a full body to God before we eat you. But we notice your toe is missing. Since your toe is missing, we cannot sacrifice you. We cannot kill you. So you're of no value to us. You're free to go. Then the king realized, oh my God, the minister said, now I understand. At that point, it was painful, but now a few weeks later, it's worked for me. So he ran back to the castle. He said, please release the minister. And he apologized and he told the minister, but tell me, you were in jail. You suffered all these weeks. How was that good for you? What do you think was the minister's response?
And the minister will say that I needed a time to meditate or something.
Good point. But the minister said, if I had not been in jail, I would have gone horse riding with you.
Okay, that's nice.
I am whole. Yeah, so I would have been. So the universe actually takes care of everything. So that story my mother told me, I think when I was maybe a teenager, but it stuck in my mind. I said, okay, so that's why when anything challenging happened, so like you say, a message for the audience, if anything challenging happens, step back a little bit and trust that there is something good that will come out of it, no matter how. That's why I don't like to get involved in some conversation because sometimes people must be ready to hear this. Right? But it will work out. For those who feel that, yes, this has worked out for me, write a journal, like something you thought was challenging maybe last year, last week, 3 years ago, and how you notice now it has worked out. Those little things, when you start writing it out and looking at it, you will start having more confidence and faith. Yes, whatever challenge you're going through, actually it's for the good. Just wait and be in a very calm, good place and see things unfolding.
Oh, what a wonderful message, Vasanthi.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think these are things children should be taught in school.
Exact same sort of parable involving horse riding also. It comes from the Chinese parable and myth. It's called Sai Wong Si Ma. So Sai Wong is like a feudal lord. And then so his horse, he ran out from the paddock. And then his paddock has a hole. That was his favorite horse. And then this feudal lord Sai was very disappointed But then, lo and behold, 3 days later, not only did the horse return, it was a stallion and it brought back mares, a wild mares, and then it increased the number of horses that he had. So he was very delighted. However, then one day, the son went horse riding, and then the son fell down and broke his leg. And then the fielder was very angry and then said that I should have killed this horse in his anger. I should have killed this horse. So he made my son fall, and now he's broken his leg. And who knew that after that, war broke out, and then the warlords were conscripting young men. And then it just so happened that because his son had just broken his leg, his son did not need to be conscripted into the war. And then it turns out like, oh no, something happened for a reason, and one thing relates to another. And then we just don't know unless we look at it retrospectively. And how can my audience find you if they want to learn more about yoga or Ayurveda?
Like I said, I only do the education part. I don't do any treatment aspect. The Ayurveda Association of Singapore, we conduct a lot of outreach program educating people. We also now started from this year, we'll be doing pranayama teacher training. There's so many people learning asana to allow the flow so that the disease does not manifest. We talked about 6 stages of disease to prevent disease from manifesting. So this is what we call real preventive treatment. So to allow the flow to be natural. So that's also something that we do. So Ayurveda Association of Singapore, the website is aaos.org.sg. You can find us.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us, Vasanthi. Bid you a great day. And signing off, this is Holistic Human. This is Kuan Yew and our guest, Vasanthi. Bye.
Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe, like and bell button to stay updated in our latest videos. Thank you.